You know how they keep that. That's why I ain't open that door. I don't think I keep it.
Amen.
Amen.
We're gonna start our Exodus, the introduction.
What's up? The first page? Oh, the introduction
The
page.
second book of Moses called Exodus.
Okay.
For those that have your study Bible. Exodus relate to the story of freedom for God's people from slavery and the beginning of the national identity.
Yeah.
The book is strategically important to both Old Testament history and a proper understanding of the Hebrew custom and institution. It is a viral connection link between the age of the patriarch Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Joseph and the remaining book of the law, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It relates how God fulfilled his promise to Abraham by multiplying his descendants into a great nation, Genesis 12 and 2, and then redeeming them from bondage, Genesis 15, 13, and 14. God then gave them the law, chapter 12, 20 through 23, and instruction for building the tabernacle, the place for which he would meet with his people in worship. Exodus emphasizes God's covenant faithfulness, 2 and 24, 3, 6, and 6, 4 through 8, and 15 and 13. The deliverance from bondage was crucial events in the experience of the Israelites. Centuries later, many authors of the Psalms and poetic books claim it as the most significant miracle in their history. The deliverance served as a beautiful type of the sinner redemption from the bondage of sin. God is present in several interesting roles in the book. 1, he is the one who controls history. 2, he is pictured as the great I am. 3, he is a holy God. 4, he is the God who remembers. 5, he is the God who acts in salvation. And 5 again say he is the God who acts in judgment. 6, he is the God whose anger may be averted. 6 again says this, he is the God who speaks. 7, he is the God who is transcendent. And 8, he is the God who lives among his people. This is the introduction on most study Bibles. Well, mine's, I don't know if it's an error or what, but it kept repeating for 2 of those numbers. Historical settings. First lady, you ready? Historical settings. Following is a brief presentation of approximate dates of events in the book of Exodus. Jacob and his family entered Egypt about 430 years before the Exodus 12 and 40 and Galatians 3 and 17, which will be about 1877 BC. During this time, Israel experienced physical prosperity and increased. Chapter 1 and 7. Then Joseph died about 1800 BC. Genesis 50 and 26 about 1720 BC. The Hyksos took over Egypt 1 and 8. These arose up a new king over Egypt, and intense bondage began for the Israelite. I guess you say Hyksos? Hyksos. Mine's reading different from yours. I didn't skip anything.
Joseph died about 1800 BC, Genesis 52:6. About 1720 BC, the Hyksos
Took over Egypt.
That's where we at.
1 and 8.
That's where we at.
They rose up over new king.
There rose up a new king over Egypt, and intense bondage began for the Israelites. The Hyksos were expelled about 1570 BC by the Egyptians, and King Hamas won 1517 through 1545 BC, with the beginning of the 18th dynasty, and the impression continued 15 through 22. Moses was born about 1527 BC during the reign of Amenhotep I, and 1545 through 1525 BC, and fled into exile about 1887 BC, 1487 BC, 2 and 15 during Ashipah reign, 1504 to 1483 BC. Based upon two scripture witness, the Exodus took place in approximately 1447 BC. According to 1 Kings 6 and 1, the Temple of Solomon was begun in the 4th year of his reign, 967 BC, or shortly thereafter, which was the 480th year after the Exodus. This would be in reign of Amenhotep II, 1450 through 1423 BC. Further confirmed of this early date for the Exodus is found in Judges 11 and 26, where Jephthah remains the Amalekite invaders, that the Israelites have been too long in possession of the constant land of Gilead for the Amorites to challenge their legal rights to hold it. The time period is given as 300 years before Jephthah's days, which was about 1100 BC. And a New Testament refers substantially. A New Testament reference substantially. The early date is found in Acts 13 and 19 and 20, with a reference to 450 years, which include the Exodus itself down to the career of Samuel, and even to David's capture of Jerusalem about 1004 BC. In spite of the scripture evidence, many scholars today favor a consistently later date. The most favored one at present begins 1290 BC, which would be about 10 years after Ramses II began his reign. And still later date of about 1225 BC is favored by a few scholars. Authorship. The evidence that support the Mosaic authorship of Genesis, see that book of introduction, also applies to Exodus. There is possibility testimony beginning in his days and continued into modern time through an unbroken chain, unlike Genesis, which is anonymous or as integral evidence in concern. Exodus claimed in more than one place that Moses wrote at least substantially portions of the book. In 1714, he was told to write on a scroll the story of Israel's victory over the Amalekites. Also, 24 and 4 record that Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, which probably include at least 20 and 18 and 23 and 33. The law code known as the Book of the Covenant In Joshua's days, Moses' law was still mandatory for the people. Joshua 1 and 7. In David's day, the king referred to the law was still the law of God commandments written in the law of Moses, 1 Kings 2 and 3. The Hilkites, the priests, discovered the book of the law in the temple, 2 Chronicles 34 and 14. During the Babylon exile, Daniel read of the course written in the law of Moses, Daniel 9 and 11, and Ezra the priest set up Passover observation for the returning remnant, as it is written in the book of Moses, Ezra 6 and 18, and the Old Testament end with Malachi exhortation, remembering ye the law of Moses, my servant, Malachi 4 and 4. Jesus quoted from Exodus 20 and 12 using the introduction. For Moses said, Mark 7 and 10 and Luke 20 and 37, the Apostle Paul noted both the Jewish community and the Christian church throughout history has been that Moses wrote the book of Exodus.
Over here. All right, so we're going into Exodus. We did already do the introduction, but I'm going to do some brief settings. Reverend Marshall just read our Bible's introduction. And so we already touched that. We know that there's 350 years in between the time that Genesis ends and the last verse of Genesis to the beginning of Exodus. There are 350 years, so don't think it just rolls straight over. Okay? And I did this thing, so I opened a book. I read a book by an author called, his name is Everett Fox. I got permission from Bishop. Anyways, he separated Exodus into 6 sections for our learning, okay? So chapter 1 through 15 will be the deliverance narrative, which is where we're going to read about them being delivered from Egypt. 15 through 18, 27 is going to be the wilderness. The covenant and the law chapters are going to be 19 through 24. I don't know where it says that. And then the blueprints for the tabernacle and its services is going to be chapter 25 through 31. Chapter 32 through 34 is going to be infidelity and reconciliation. And then chapter 35 through 40 will be the building of the tabernacle. Okay? And so we'll section them off like that, so we're just not going from chapter to chapter and just reading and not understanding what's going on. Alright? Give me a second. Here are the opening settings for the first chapter and pretty much what's going to set the tone. The setting is in Egypt, as we already know. The time between Joseph dying, I just told you that, is 350 years from when Exodus begins. Joseph tells the children of Israel to bury his bones not in Egypt. Remember we talked about that last week? And they had him in a coffin. They embalmed his body, but they never buried him because they didn't know when they were getting out of Egypt. So they got a whole coffin sitting out, never burying Joseph because they're ready to go, okay? Therefore, Joseph's body is not buried in Exodus, but is embalmed and remains in a coffin. They end up burying him in Shechem later on. Y'all will read about that in Joshua, okay? The children of Israel were more than just shepherds. In between that time, when they first got there, they were shepherds, but they ended up learning how to do stone building, carpentry. They learned all of those trades while they were over there, okay? So they're not only shepherds now, they're able to move within Egypt. They're probably mingling and marrying and making children, and they're comfortable, okay? I want you to get in your mind that they are comfortable when in those 350 years they are not slaves. In those 350 years, although I did point out that Joseph was still a slave, even when he died, they couldn't basically leave Egypt. And does anybody remember why I pointed that out?
So he was in his coffin for like 300 years?
Huh?
So he was in his coffin for like 300 years?
In between this time to that time, yes, 350 years. They never buried him because they didn't know when they were going to leave. They embalmed him. But when they get ready to cross over to the Red Sea and they get ready to travel through the wilderness, they're literally going to drag his coffin of bones with them. And they didn't bury it because they didn't know when they were leaving.
Yeah.
But his request was, don't bury me here, bury me. Don't bury me in Egypt. And so they buried him in the land that their father bought, which Jacob bought, which was Shechem. Where they did the botch job, as Reverend Marshall likes to call it. Okay? The Torah, the children of Israel were more, oh, I already said that. The Torah is a Jewish book of instructions and teaching. So usually when we talk about the Pentateuch, I know that we've been saying like, I'm going to say I have been saying that the Pentateuch is the Torah. Okay, no. The Torah does include the Pentateuch. But the Jewish look at that, that's the Jewish Bible, right? That's their Bible, and they view it as instructions and teachings. And so they pass this on. That's what it's the same thing we do with our Bible. Okay, they just don't have the New Testament and all of the other chapters, okay? All right, let me go on. That was a lot that fast, huh? Okay. There are some key words that, Bishop, you gonna give me the okay? Okay, yeah. There are some key words that I want us to focus on during these chapters. Okay, fire. Fire is used frequently in varied contexts. It's usually going to make a statement about God, okay? In contrast to conventional, the fire god that is in Egypt, which is Loki. Okay, the God of Exodus is most often associated with more positive aspects when fire is concerned, okay? It's constancy, purity, and transformation. For an example, the fire at Mount Sinai, it didn't destroy Moses and the people, but rather turns them into something new, you know, with the burning bush and the, y'all got it? All right. Fire is used regularly to signify anger in the Bible, you know, later on, especially God's, especially in the later wilderness stories, okay? But in here, fire is more of a positive aspect, and it's where God is going to be transforming.
But you did. I wonder. Did you also say that fire is the Egyptians have
they have a fire god
named Thor.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm thinking about you said Thor. I thought about what you call it.
Loki.
Loki was with Thor, the movie Thor, and Loki was Thor's brother, but it's kind of dealing with the Egyptians back.
That's them. Yeah, that's what they believed in. They believed in all of those different gods. Okay. Yeah. What we'll find out in Exodus is that this is very God-centered, and everything that's going on with them is God getting their attention to let them know that I'm in charge of everything. Okay? Even the whole time. Now, remember that 350 years have passed, and so even when Joseph died, there were 3 generations of children that he got to see. So his kids' kids and his kids' kids. Okay? A generation is usually about 20 to 30 years. Okay? So he got to see those. Remember, as time goes by, if those stories are not passed on, or tradition can get lost if we don't keep it up. All right, stories can get lost. You go to church, but maybe your offspring won't go as much as you, and it'll fall off. You understand what I mean? But it falls off, and so it's up to us to keep it enforced or to keep it in memory. Joseph's coffin served as a memory that the children of Israel would get out of Egypt. Every day that they looked at it, some of them kids were probably like, what is that, right? We talked about that. And they were like, that's your reminder that we getting out of here. We got to take him in. Go, we got to bury him. Okay, and then the other thing was, even though, so the first set of Joseph, he was, let's say, the first generation. They would have came as immigrants. Every generation after that was born there in Egypt. So they real comfortable because that's home to them. That's all they know. All right, we want to keep that in mind. So God has to do something in order to continue with his plan to get Israel as a nation, because that's what he told them they were going to be, a people, his people, and he's going to shape them. And we're going to see that in these chapters. Okay? All right, the next one is water. Water. I found this one very interesting because it appears throughout Exodus as an active medium, which most often it signifies life and death at the same time, right? The water. So an example, and I'm not going to read all of this, but the Pharaoh told the babies to be thrown in he ordered for all the babies to be thrown in the Nile River, where the water was. That's the same water that Moses floated on in order to be preserved.
And it's
So-
the same water that turned to blood.
It's the same water that turned into blood, but it's the same water that split for the children of
Shit,
Israel,
Israel to go.
which is the same water that drowned Pharaoh and his army.
Which is the same water.
The same water. Okay, so it has the Red Sea is a passage, and so all of that is there. But I just want us to pay attention to that as well, okay? And then as you see these words, it'll probably click like some things to you, and you'll probably get some like epiphanies. But this is definitely where God shows that He is God, okay? This is where He shows that He is God, and there is nothing above Him. There is no situation above Him. There is nobody above Him. No one can do anything to you that God is not going to allow. Okay? This is my last one, and then we'll go into the chapter. The availability of water became an issue even in the wilderness because it was necessary for survival and testing of the Israelites' faith. Okay? Water creates the ritual purity. These are just some examples of necessary for the people at Sinai and the priests of the tabernacle to approach God. And then I just put down their generations. All right, so let's go ahead and start reading Exodus 1. With all of that in mind, is there something else I forgot? I'll pick it up later if I did. Yeah, desert. That's okay. We'll pick it up later. All right. All right, let's read. Exodus 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher, and all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. And this is, that first outline is Israel's descendants in Egypt, okay? So what we see here is that the production has not stopped. These kids, the Israelites are still producing.
Yeah, and God's promise for them to multiply,
Become a nation.
become a nation is in process.
It is in
They're
process.
just growing.
And remember, although they're numbering them 70, remember I told y'all that they not kidnapped, when they killed the men of Shechem, they took all women and children from there. So the people that came over to Egypt was not just 70 people, but that was the named men of Joseph's family, of Jacob's family, okay? But it's not exactly how many. It might have been maybe about 200 of them that came over, okay? All right, the next outline, a new king for Egypt. And we did hear Reverend Marshall read this today about the Hyksos, Egyptian pharaoh. He was in charge when Joseph became a slave, and now there is a seat change. And I did explain this last week that there was a northern general in Egypt. He decided to get him to rally together a group of people, and then they went to war with the Hyksos pharaoh. They defeated him, and then they took the seat. And that's when the seat change happened. Okay? All right. Verses 8 through, what is that? No, the Hyksos was in place when Joseph was enslaved. And remember, the Hyksos are the Semites, which are basically the cousins, so they were very aware of who Israel was. And I just want to point out, I said this last week, I do want to say it again, that it is amazing that people will keep you in their pocket just so they can be blessed. Because that's basically what we're looking at throughout the story of Jacob and Joseph and now the Israelites, okay? All right, let's read so we can see what I just said. All right. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that they were fallen out of the war. They joined unto our enemies and fight against us, so get them out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made their children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they were made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And all their services wherein they were made them serve was rigor. All right, did you look up that word, Reverend Randy?
No.
You didn't do that one that time?
Rigor?
Hard, okay? Basically, hard labor. Now, I want to say this. I'm going to show you some pictures of this. First of all, this is where Ramesses and Pithom sit, okay? They sit not too far from each other. And here's a better one. Okay, that's the land of Goshen. They both sit in the land of Goshen. So remember that Joseph told Jacob and the brothers to say that they were shepherds in order for them to place them in the land of Goshen. Okay, so what Pharaoh did was, this new Pharaoh, he put them in bondage. He thought that was going to stop them from multiplying. The harder the labor, the less time they have, keep them here. Keep them here. And so they made what they called city stores, or stores in those two cities. And this is something I'll touch that in a minute. Hold on a second. I did a lot of work. All right. They made city stores, basically because the Pharaoh was paranoid and concerned about the number of the Israelites, okay? And he basically said, if they outnumber us, they'll go against us, they'll defeat us, and they'll leave, okay? The Israelites are forced into slavery in Pithom and Ramesses as store cities. There we go. For Pharaoh, the store cities are built by the Israelites for Pharaoh in the northeastern part of Egypt, Egyptian Delta, and it's basically stores for the kings, okay, for all of the pharaohs to come and get things. Israelites were required to make bricks. They had slave drivers, and overseers were over them daily. Now let me say this. Growing up, before I started reading the Bible for myself, I heard people all the time tell me stuff like, or they would talk amongst each other, not necessarily to me, but they would say stuff like, yeah, the Exodus talks about slavery in America. That's not what happened. Now, the Bible does say that there is nothing new under the sun. Anybody else heard that or no? You never heard that either?
Solomon, what you just said about
The slavery. Yeah, they tried to base it on it, but these are real life events that have like really happened, and sometimes we get so caught up in cultural diversity and race that we miss very important messages in the Bible, okay? So I just want to say that because for real, they could have had me whopped like real bad growing up. Okay, and then let me show you these cities. So this is the city of Pithom. Okay? That's the city of Pithom. That's the city. Okay? And the Israelites built that. How did they build that? They built that with this.
They cut them out.
No, they built that with that. They had to make the bricks themselves. So these bricks were made of clay, silt, sand, and Nile straw that came from along the Nile River. They had to combine that, they had to draw it, and it made the hardest bricks to make stuff like this. That is the city of Sukkot, or is that Ramesses. Okay, and then that's again Pithom, and that's what they were doing while they were in slavery. I showed that to say this: these people were working really, really hard. They didn't just get the bricks and build them. I was always curious about how they had the technology, but Egypt was a very advanced place. Okay, and again, the pyramids and the stones and all of that were cut out before Israelites even got there. So they had them doing this kind of work, and we'll see that they call them lazy, and they put more pressure on them, and it's all because they don't want them to produce. Okay. to produce or to get them to leave out of the land. Is there anything else? Did this really exist? Yes, it really did. This was located in Thebes, Egypt. It's Rickerman's tomb, and it shows the story of them building the bricks, okay? They found this in one of those tombs, and again, it identifies their whole work labor. And so what the Egyptians would do is they would tell the story, and they would etch it in stone and give the pictographs, is what they call it, and they would, this is what they did later on. I think that's how we started getting our math system. But again, it really existed, okay? It's not fake. It's not just something that they talked about in the Bible. It really existed. All right, so let's keep reading. 15 midwives to kill male children. Okay, 15 through 21. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shapar, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when ye do midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him, but it shall be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. Okay? And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and deliver ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. All right. Anybody want to say something before I talk?
Yes.
I know you do. I see it all over your face.
You can see the oppression stage after stage. We working you from sun up to sundown. You still multiply. That didn't work. Okay, now let's go to the midwives. Let's cut them let's stop them right here then. Let's kill all the men child right now. It's just one event after another.
So we'll see this later on too, right?
Huh?
Huh?
You talk about in the New or the Old?
In the New Testament, we'll see this once more with Jesus.
Yeah, politics.
Okay, and it's all because they hear that someone is coming
Yeah.
to deliver them. The word deliver is not a word that the Egyptians want to hear, because number one, they've already grown accustomed. Now, I did skip over this fact that this Pharaoh knows nothing about Joseph. He doesn't care anything about him. The name Joseph means nothing to him. Mainly because 350 years have passed. So just like those pharaohs changed seats, so did, and just like the Israelites forgot, so would Egypt. Okay? But they knew that it was beneficial. And remember that they already have like this bitterness, this Egyptian king, because when he took over, he's pure Egyptian. And they basically lost a lot of land and things while the Israelites were thriving in Egypt. They were suffering. Remember, they even put their own selves in semi-servitude, okay, when they took Joseph at that. All right. So these midwives, it doesn't say that they were Hebrew. Yes, it does. It says that they are Hebrew, okay? So they believe in God, but they're working with Pharaoh. Okay, so when he tells them, they're like, no, we didn't do that. And the reason why we didn't, because they have so many kids and it's so fast, and ain't no way we can catch all of the kids when they're first born.
We get there, they already down on the ground.
They feared God, but the excuse they used was to Pharaoh was they have them too fast. They have too many of them. It's too much. We can't catch every one of them, even if we catch one. You know. And so Pharaoh, in return, orders the whole Egyptian. He tells all of his people to kill the firstborn, to throw them into the Nile River. We're back at the water. All right, life and death. All right. So Here's the thing. The midwives answered the Hebrews are not like the Egyptians, all right? They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive, okay? Some scholars suggest that the barren women were most often chose as midwives in ancient cultures, possibly because they were perceived as being able to focus on the task of helping others bring forth life. I found that interesting because in return, what God did for them, because they didn't kill those Hebrew men child like they were ordered to do, he gives them families. So when the Bible says, and he blessed them, made them houses, that means he gave them families, which means children, okay? He gave them a house. So basically he blessed them. They were rewarded for not killing the men child. Any other statements, comments? Look, I'm just talking. All right. Pharaoh's command regarding infanticide, is what it was called, was limited to the midwives. That failed to work, so he expands his command to all Egyptians. Every newborn Israeli son was to be thrown in the Nile River. This was a mass genocide of all infant Jewish males. The only other place in the Bible that is similar, which I already talked about, was when it came to the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. Yeah, but the crazy part is, King Herod was Hebrew. He didn't want nobody ruling. He just didn't want nobody taking over. But he was definitely a Hebrew.
But after the midwives failed to do what he needed done, the people that were suffering, he said, y'all go ahead on and let's start killing them. So you know, you said we already understand that they were put into servitude, even themselves, some Egyptians.
Yeah, they had to.
So I'm mad. So now I'm running around trying to knock every little baby out I see.
Yeah, they're going in.
I got the okay to do it.
And they're throwing them into the Nile.
Punching the poor babies.
Yeah, the poor babies. All right, and then that's just verse 22, which we're about to read. It's Pharaoh's order to his people. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. All right, before we move to chapter 2, let me go over what we should be focusing on, or what you should have kind of had an epiphany on. Here we go. So the first thing is God fulfills his promise. That's what we should have saw when we read this. God's promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to make them a great nation. And we see this promise beginning to be fulfilled as the Israelites multiply in Egypt. Okay? The other thing that we should have seen was God's people multiplied despite oppression. Okay? Despite Pharaoh's attempt to control population, the numbers continue to grow. God's power and faithfulness. The importance of faithfulness. The midwives disobeyed Pharaoh to kill new Hebrew babies and are awarded by God. So the thing that I got from that is that it's important to stand firm in faith even during opposition. And I was talking to someone about this week, and I was saying, what's the difference between an obstacle and an opposition, like in our lives? How do you know when God is using something to shape you versus when he's using something or when the devil is trying to stop you and like kill you? The difference between an obstacle will shape you, and it's like an obstacle course. The more you learn, the better you are. You'll get through it. The more you endure, the better you are. But in opposition is sin. That's how you know it's from the devil, when it's meant to stop you or to kill you. Like when it's the end. Like that's how you know when it's opposition. And that's when you should definitely turn it over to God. Huh? Yeah, the opposition is to make you quit or to kill you. That's how you know. But if you can come out of it, or you can learn something from it. What I've started learning as I've been reading this is that certain stuff that I used to think that, it was the devil that attacked me. The devil thought he had me, but I got away. Was really God like shaping me and like making me a better person. And so as Christians, as people that believe in God, we have to get away from this this thought of everything that is sent and is uncomfortable is the devil. Because what God is doing in Exodus, in this beginning chapter, and even at the end, I'm coming to you right now. Even at the end, is He's shaping His people that He has chosen, and He's making them uncomfortable, but He's doing it in order to get them to where He needs them to be. Okay? Yes, sir.
In that what you were saying, the difference between the opposition and
Obstacle.
obstacle, you preached one time and you said, I don't know if you're doing inspirational preaching, but you said, I've stopped looking at the problem and started saying, okay, God, what I need to learn
What do I need to learn? Yeah.
from this. And if we take that attitude towards everything, if we stop allowing like well, the devil is,
Fear and
the devil that,
defeat.
yeah, and we start saying, okay, what do I need to, what are you trying to teach me on? What do I need to learn at this stage with this? You understand what I'm saying? It's kind of like a lot of the times, I pray for people, but a lot of times I'll be saying, Lord, I need you to fix me first.
Yeah.
Fix me where I'm able to comprehend and or understand what's going on.
Well, I pray fix me every day. But yeah, like when you're dealing with stuff, it will feel like the devil is attacking you. It really will. Especially, imagine the Israelites, they came out of a different land. These people don't know anything about what their forefathers went through or how they got there. They just know they were born there and that they were comfortable. And overnight, almost practically overnight, their lives changed. They went to having overseers and taskmasters, and they were only limited to certain stuff that they could have. It didn't say that they were, like they couldn't move throughout the city or anything, but they definitely had to work hard, okay? And they basically were making it hard like that on them for them to be uncomfortable, for them to feel less, for them to be like, this is our life, Hopeless. But instead of them doing that, they kept on multiplying. They learned. And everything that they're learning, this mud brick building these cities and stuff, they will take back with them. Because at first they were just shepherds, and they were only building tents, if y'all don't remember. They were pitching tents.
Now they pitching houses.
Now they can build houses and stones
And that's going to be good for later because you're going to inherit some stuff that you need to start building.
Well, and when they get to those lands, because they've already been promised. So remember, Joseph is still sitting over here. Poor Joseph in his coffin, his bones now, but he's sitting here. And they know, I mean, the only thing we do know is that we're supposed to bury him somewhere else if we get out of here, but I don't know when we get out of here. And so now they're in oppression. And that if you've ever been in a situation like where you felt like you just didn't have an option, it feels really, really heavy. You know, a lot of people, if they don't have hope, they give up. But if you have hope, you just keep on moving. And the more you move, the more God he'll show up. Because it doesn't say that he was absent. Yes, ma'am.
He has to be permission from God anyway to come at us. So he ain't
Talking about the devil?
Yeah. So
No,
God
right.
been boasting on us about, hey, a child don't handle this. Y'all already know, where the help comes from.
Yeah.
I believe this kind of ties into our last Sunday's Sunday school lesson where they had people who were giving up, so when is Jesus going to return? He ain't returned yet. Can you imagine the children of Israel going through all of this and saying, when we're going to be delivered? When we're going to leave this place? We ain't left yet. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It'll be easy for you to lose sight of the prize after you've been oppressed and mashed. You understand what I'm saying?
I talked to somebody today. I understand what you're saying. I'm going to use this as an example. I'm putting business out, but I ain't putting nobody's name out, so they can be mad. I don't care. But I talked to someone on the phone. And when I talked to them on the phone, I called them because I'm setting up something for somebody. And when I talked to them, first of all, they were asleep. It was during the day. They were asleep. I was like, hey, why are you sleeping? And the second part was I was talking to them about one thing, but they wanted a woe is me story. And I could not give them the woe is me. I couldn't feel the bad part. I couldn't feel bad for them. Because I was like, you're not doing anything to fix it. But to me, he really thought, it was a he, really thought that he was being oppressed. But he really wasn't. He just wasn't he's not grabbing on to hope or life. And I was like, well, you're going to get it together. I ain't gonna feel sorry for you. I gotta get it, you gotta get it, you know? You know? But people will get like that, and they'll really think that this is just all I got. No, that's not all you got. You gotta get up and keep going. And what God is doing here is he has already instilled in them. We know that their kind of pride. We know what Jacob's kids got. Jacob boys are some boys, you know? We know what kind of people they are. So as their generations come along, we can imagine that they're proud, they're used to having, and their whole life is changing because now they're slaves. And if you've ever had like a whole lot of money and then your bank account went low, been there, okay? You had a whole bunch of money and then your bank account went low, you feel like you went from the palace to the pit. Now you're not eating salmon no more, you eat noodles. Like you like... You know, it's not a great feeling to feel like that, but life does do that to you. But it's to shape you.
Yeah.
I bet you don't spend like I used to spend.
Yeah.
Okay. Still spend, but not just... Okay. Alright. The other thing, let me see if there's anything else before we go to chapter 2. Anybody else want to say something? Oh yeah, there's a whole lot. Another one. God's justice and mercy. That was another thing that we read about in 1, whether you saw it or not. It foreshadows God's intervention, deliverance of the people from slavery. Okay, we know they're going to get out of here. God's plan for his people. The story of the Israelites in Egypt sets the stage for the Exodus, highlighting God's plan to lead the people out of bondage and into the promised land. God's power and sovereignty. Events in this chapter demonstrate God's power and sovereignty as God is able to overcome the most powerful rulers and situations. And then the last one, God's care for his people. God's care for his people is shown even in their suffering as he hears the cries and the plans to deliver them. And we're going to read about that in 2. All right? Okay. So I have got through all of those. I'm going to put it on the map. Oh, let me show you this cool thing right quick. I apologize, Bishop. All right. This is a real note. It's written on papyrus paper. You can literally find this in the British Museum. Okay? I'll even put the address there so you can go look it up if you want to, if you don't believe me. Alright, and basically what this is how they wrote their notes. They would take the papyrus leaves and they would write the hieroglyphics on the leaves. This is a note that they found in Egypt. And let me see if I can tell you what it says. It says, I am residing at Queen...
Where you read that at?
Where did I read it?
Where you read that at? Where they say that?
Oh, I can only tell you what they told me it said in the British Museum. And 2, without provision, and neither men to make bricks nor straw are in this region. So there was this guy, he went over there and he's supposed to be overseeing some bricks and stuff being made. And he's like, there's nobody over here. And that was the note that they found. So did it exist? Yes, it existed. Okay, this is a real note. And that was on a papyrus leaf. And so they use that for a lot of stuff. In fact, we're going to see that Moses' mom, she built him a little boat. The little thing that she laid him in is made out of the same thing. All right, let's start reading. Any question? Nope. Awesome. Chapter 2. Moses hidden, and this is verse 1 through 4. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took a wife, a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, which is tar, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sisters stood afar off to wit what would be done to him.
They were watching to see.
So she was watching them to see where the basket was going. Okay, and that bulrush is papyrus. The words are a bit different in the King James version. All right, let me get to chapter 2. It's not a lot for chapter 2 for me. All right, so the woman, the wife, hides Moses for 3 months. His name is not Moses yet, by the way. He's just a baby. All right, but he's hidden for 3 months. After she couldn't hide him any longer, because what, he's going to be crying, he's going to be loud, they're going to come and they're going to kill him, right? So she goes ahead and she puts him in this little ark that she makes for him, and she sends him down the river. We know that that river is the Nile River. It's the same river that they're throwing all of those babies in to die. Crazy, right? Because this is the same river that's going to preserve his life. Okay, and then his big sister,
She followed him.
she followed the basket, and she's instructed by her mother to do so. So I imagine, y'all, have anybody seen The Prince of Egypt? So how the little girl is like walking, and if the basket gets stuck, she'll push it, and like she's just making it flow, going down the river to there. Yeah, and that's Miriam, okay? Sister's definitely named Miriam, all right? There is a sister and a brother, Miriam and Aaron. We'll read about Aaron later, but from this man and this woman, there is going to be 3 children, all right? Okay, any other statements? No? All right, Moses' early life. That was fast. I guess so, huh? Oh, yeah, that's fine. I watch a lot of documentaries now. Moses' early life, all right? It's going to go from 5 to 14. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to him that did wrong, "Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow?" And he said, "Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killest thy Egyptian?" And Moses feared and said, "Surely this thing is known." This is a lot.
Did she tell him that he was
She did not. Not then.
He didn't know he was Hebrew.
Not right there.
But he just defended people. He just, I guess in his soul, felt that something about this, the people, for him not knowing at that moment that he was Hebrew.
Have you ever been somewhere and you know something is wrong and you just can't Not even figure it out, but let it go. I have a lot of those moments, and I hate it, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you. I hate it.
When you see somebody being mistreated, and
Yeah.
that's what he saw. I saw that happen one time. I was at a transit center, and there was a lot of guys at the transit center. So I had walked off, and it was a little Mexican lady, little older Mexican lady, and some young boys had ran by and snatched her purse and threw her down on the ground, and none of those other guys helped the poor lady. I went over and got the lady off the ground. I was just like, wow. They just stood there and watched them.
Just watched her.
Those are little young boys attack that lady.
Yeah, and they didn't do anything.
To
Hey,
help.
to everyone coming in, we're in Exodus 2, verse 14 for now. All right. Huh?
Yeah, Moses did, he felt after he did what he did, killed that man, he felt something was different about him. So he knew right then that he wasn't.
He didn't know. They had to tell him.
Moses looked left and right to see who was looking.
He felt something was different about him.
Well, he probably felt something was different about him, but remember, Moses has been raised as an Egyptian prince.
Yes, and that was the first time he killed somebody.
That was the first time that he even stepped out. Like,
Yeah.
the Bible is calling them his brethren because that is who he comes from. But there is no indication that he
No.
knew. Because it said, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses. Okay? When the child was older. But after the mother,
Winged him.
okay. After the mother raised him, and we're gonna go back to that in a second, he never knew a Hebrew anything. Okay? Hello. He never knew a Hebrew anything. He was raised as
Egyptian.
an Egyptian, okay? And he knew the Pharaoh's daughter to be his mother.
That's
All
like
right?
if you're raised, that's like if you're raised Catholic, that's really all you know until you grow up and decide what you want to do. But if you're raised Catholic, that's all you're going to know is Catholic.
Right.
You won't know nothing about Baptist or sanctified.
You have to learn it because I sure didn't know nothing about no holiness church.
You have to like learn it. So that's basically.
I didn't know about holiness church until I came over here.
Straight on Baptist.
I'm trying to tell you, I'm straight Baptist, missionary Baptist at that.
Here's something else for you.
Baptist.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was raised like that.
Here's something else. It was a secret being held in that palace.
What the secret was?
Moses was the secret.
It was the secret because, you know, those midwives knew that
We're in
this
Exodus
baby
2.
is a Hebrew baby, and that now you're taking it to be yours. What would Pharaoh think? So somebody's being. She said she paid that way. Somebody being paid up.
That's
paid.
Moses' mom.
But
No, Moses, so yeah, we're going back.
But you see Moses' mama
but
ended up
Pharaoh's
still
sister
taking care of him.
had to pay them hush money.
You talking about her
Maid.
Her
Paid
maids?
the mama for taking care of her
She
son.
paid the mama, but that was a good.
Those were her nurses.
Yeah, those were her nurses.
Now, I did see this movie. Was it the movie, Bishop, that we watched? Where she had just lost a baby. Okay, that is not in this Bible. All right.
Right.
But but basically she was very sad anyway. So when she took the baby on because she had just lost one,
And then you see how
and that's how it was easily to be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was in the documentary I watched. That's in the name. But with that Pharaoh's daughter, that's what I read.
Yeah,
That's what I saw.
And you see how-
That wasn't Hollywood.
But the one I saw, they did it like that.
Well, that may be the truth. See, that's a Pharaoh's daughter. Her story ain't gonna be in our Bible.
Yeah, they made it that it said that she had lost a
She
child
had just lost
barren,
That's
and
not,
then-
that's not Hollywood, it actually.
No, it really.
Facts.
Yeah.
It's-
But I'm just talking about how the movie did.
It's Egypt's story. See,
Yeah.
this is the crazy thing. We're all sitting in here, right? And this is our Bible. This is what we are. So if someone was to write a story on us, they're going to be like, Church of Jesus Christ and God members are sitting in Bible study on this day, and this is what they were doing. Now, all of y'all have family members. Y'all got issues going on outside of here, but we can't see any of what's going on with your family members or outside of here. You understand? We only know what's here. But outside of here, that Pharaoh's daughter, she had a whole nother issue going on. And I learned from, I'm coming to you right now, but I really want to give y'all this one because I've been learning, okay? I learned from this that we should not be so selfish to think that other people don't have anything going on when we're talking to them.
All right.
Come on.
Amen.
Everybody has an issue. Everybody has a story. Even while I'm talking to you, this is one story, but over here is something else. Somebody's dealing with something. So you shouldn't be so selfish to not acknowledge that, you know, there's stuff going on. So Pharaoh's daughter being at that Nile River when Moses came up, that the cry also could have been a compassionate cry. Exodus 2, verse 15, because she was already dealing with something. And that's why it was so easy for her to take in. And then it was the sister that told her, like, you want me to go ahead and take it? Have you ever had anybody like, my kids do this to me? And I do it too, I'm not gonna lie. So I know they got it from me. I could be Rebecca at this moment. All right. But if I want something, or if I don't want you to think about what I just said, I'm gonna hurry up and ask you questions to make you give me a...
I'm working the schedule for our church.
Okay, got you.
Well, that's I hope we didn't hear. Not funny. But if I want you to do something, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tell you what I want you to do, so that you don't have to give me an answer that I don't want.
Gotcha. Can you repeat what you said?
Nope. Go ahead.
But you also can see in here that God's plan is always gonna prevail, because
That's not.
you see where, like, any mother in here can imagine having to send their baby off, you know, can imagine the hurt. But God made it to where, yes, she sent her baby off, but she also, it was 3 months, she also was able to come back and nurse him.
And she knew what she was doing. She kept the baby, right? She held him for 3 months. And then she told the daughter to go ahead and watch him. But check this out. Miriam already had access to the Pharaoh's daughter. She already had access to the palace. I can go get a Hebrew to take care of this baby.
And it was the mama.
So the mama got paid to watch her child, to save her child, and to nurse her child. Because she nursed that child as well.
Look how God worked.
And then turned him over to Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah.
And isn't that, but like God ordains stuff so amazingly. Like you think that it's all in His plan. There have been things that I thought were not going to go well. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to abort ship, jump ship, run. I'm out of here. And God be like, no, you're not. You're going to stay right there. And then I'd be like, And then all of a sudden it just opens, like the plan is just there, right? It just unfolds and you're like, the whole time I was tripping and it worked out. It's because whatever God's plan is, it's going to come to pass.
And then also, First Lady, you see that her plan was this big and God's plans was that big. Her plan was just simply to save the baby. And what God did was not only save the baby, but cause her to still be in the baby's life.
And what about this? That same baby is going to be the one that saves the nation.
That's going to be the deliverer. Yeah.
So, again, just so I can clarify, because I know Bishop gonna go over and whine and recording now. I hate recording sisters. What I said was, have you ever went to ask a question and you go ahead and give an answer before the person gives you the answer you don't want? All right? All right. And that's not called manipulation, Reverend Robert. That's called being spoiled. All right. All right. So, we're going to verse 15, and the name of this outline is going to be Moses Flees from Pharaoh. Chapter 2, verse 15, and it's going to go to the 22nd verse. And, let me read this right quick before we keep going. I'm going to read the commentary for chapter 2, 1 through 25, okay? It says, the phrase of the daughter of Pharaoh has been interpreted by many to refer to the famous Hatshepsut. All right. She lived from 1504 through 1483 BC, considering an early date for the Exodus, since Moses would have been born at 1527 BC. This would be during the reign of her father, Tutmos the first, and he lived from 1525 to 1508 BC. Not many years, okay? She was his only daughter, and when her father died, she became the queen, all right? Having been married to her half-brother, all right? So there was a brother, Tutmos II. So when she becomes queen, Moses becomes a prince, all right? After his death, she had herself crowned king with full pharaonic powers, regalia, and titulary, refusing for nearly 20 years to allow her stepson, Tutmos III, to rule. But there is a good possibility that Moses was reared in one of the royal harems, which were common in the New Kingdom period, which reigned from 1570 to 1085 BC. The Egyptian kings maintained residences in harems not only in the great capital of Thebes, Memphis, and Ramesses, but also in other parts of Egypt. The harems supervised a great deal of domestic industry, spinning and weaving done by servants. The children of harem women would be educated, all right, and we'll find that in Acts 7:22, by the overseers of the harem. In due time, princes, he was called her son, were giving a tutor who was usually a high official at court, or maybe a retired military officer close to the king. The fact that he became her son may merely indicate he had rejoined the royal court. Having done so, he was in a position to receive all the privileges and opportunities of a member of that court. The king of Egypt died. This would have been Tutmos III, okay? The pharaoh of the oppression. Okay? So let's go back and I'm going to read.
You know, I read Pharaoh's daughter, she had lepers. So when she got her nose out of water, that cured her.
It cured her.
And
Ah.
that's why she was so touched with him. That's why she loved Moses so good.
I never heard that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was a thing during that time too, right? Leprosy? All right.
Because she was going to take a bath in the water.
That's right.
But she pulled him out the basket, she touched the basket. Everything, she just got to it.
Okay. All right, so we're going 15 through 25 now, or 22. All right. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock, and the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flocks. And when they came to Reuel the father, he said, "How is it that ye are come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flocks." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his wife, and she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a strange land." So by now, Moses does know who he is, okay? And when he was out, I don't want to leave that out. When he was out observing and saw the Egyptians dealing harshly with the Hebrew, he struck them, right? He was also like what you would call like an overseer. They said like he would basically go out to make sure everything was, that was one of the prince's jobs. I think I forgot to say that. Okay. Moses was 40 when he fled to Midian. That's how old he was. He wasn't a little baby. He wasn't a teenager. He was 40. 40 is a very important number. And I had to try to figure out why it was so important because I kept on seeing it in our studies. And this is what I came up with, and we can talk about it. The number 40 frequently appears in context of hardship, judgment, and spiritual preparation. You don't believe me? Nobody want to say nothing? Keep on going. Okay.
If I was Moses, and I lose my friendship of one of you clowns, sorry, I didn't see anything.
You don't know nothing?
You get it?
You don't know nothing?
It ain't none of my business. Y'all do
Because I want to keep my princeship.
Yes.
That's why you not Moses.
But, but have you ever dealt with something? And I'm going to ask this question again. And for some reason you can't understand why you can't let it go?
Yes.
Because there are things that are created in us. And most of the time God will use situations to wake us up. And even when we don't realize that he's doing that, he's doing that. Alright? If that makes sense. Alright, so let me show y'all this. I just want to give y'all some examples. Because nobody didn't say nothing about this number 40. Alright, proof that 40 is for testing and trials. The number 40 frequently appears in context of hardship, judgment, and spiritual preparation. Here are some examples. Noah's flood, God sent rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Remember, he was on that ship, couldn't go nowhere, he had to stay there while the world was flooding and changing. Okay? Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert before his ministry. Okay? The Israels wandered in the desert for 40 years. Moses on Mount Sinai. Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments. The 40-day period of Lent is a time of spiritual preparation for Christians. It's rooted in the biblical usage of the number 40. Let me see. Goliath taunted the Israelites for 40 days. Elijah traveled 40 days and nights to Mount Horeb. The Israelites took 40 days to spy on Canaan. Jesus appeared to his disciples for 40 days after his resurrection. So, again, 40 is a number of significant period of time or a process of transformation.
So by 40, you ought to know something. Stop being stupid.
By 40, you should know something. Maybe by 25, you better know something. Okay? Playing in this world. But anytime we see the number 40, let it resonate that God is doing some shaping, that he is doing some changing, okay? And that he's expecting something to be different. All right? Okay. Uh-huh. He was 40 when he didn't leave Egypt, but he went to Midian in Egypt. He was still in Egypt. He was just in a city. Let me put it on. You want to put the map back up there?
No,
Oh.
He was on the mountain.
Well, I'll take for granted because everybody already knows the story. But anyway, he was 80.
When?
When he became 80, you understand where I'm coming from?
What are you talking about?
What he
80?
did at 80?
When Moses became 80.
What about him when he became 80?
I'm thinking about what you said about George.
You 80, huh? You trying to think about something. Come on, talk to me.
You're real smart. You know that?
I know I am. Come on, I got to figure it out. I always try to gauge it so I can understand.
I can see God shaping me the same way that he done Moses.
So 40 times 2, got you.
I can relate to that.
Got you.
You feel me?
Uh-huh.
That's what
Okay, I got you. I have to put my mic down and understand. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
I'm still being shaped.
Yeah, you're still being shaped, but at this point, though, you're definitely not the same person that you were when you were younger. And so,
On the inside, but not on the outside.
right. His soul, he's different on, his soul is different.
Unstable like water.
He's still unstable like water on the outside.
He's unstable like water.
All right, so yeah, but when we see the number
Wait a
4,
minute, so how are you different on the outside but not on the inside?
oh yeah, you did just say that.
I'm still not getting it.
He say he's still not getting it.
You all let it get up, right? You just pop up, I can't.
But your soul is different, right?
But you're not, I mean, you're not different on the inside as you are on the outside. You don't do the same thing you used to do, but, I mean, time change, people change.
What I meant is my soul don't age, but my body did.
Your soul don't age.
Does my soul age?
Yeah, your soul changes.
Mature.
Your soul matures. Yeah, so it changed.
Okay, all right.
I know you said it.
You was a devil before, right?
He let the devil use him, Bishop. He let the devil use him. There's a difference. He let the devil use him.
Let me ask you a question.
The booger with the sugar, that's what he said. I heard him.
When you was 20, did you fight? Did you fight people? When you was 20, did you fight people? 10, 20, 30, 40,
Not as much as you used to, huh?
50.
Save him, Lord.
Hold on. 60, did you fight? 70, did you
Help him,
fight?
Lord.
80, did you fight people?
Yeah.
Okay, no more questions. Go ahead.
Look, I read, this is what I found in Moses.
But before you say that, it doesn't matter how old we all are still in working process. We are trying to get better.
Oh, yes, God.
Doesn't matter how old we are.
I'm constantly under construction.
Doesn't matter how holy you are.
There's some big old potholes
We're
over
still
here.
trying to get better. No, you can
We ain't
try.
gonna never be that holy.
We strive to be too holy. We want to be too holy, but
There's
you're not
sirens
gonna
over
be.
here.
But we're trying to be like Jesus. That's why Jesus came, because nobody can do what he does. But we're trying to. Yeah, we're all trying to.
I'm not as close to God as I need to be, but I like to think that I'm closer to him than I was yesterday because
David said it like this. He told God to give him a clean heart and renew the right spirit in him. That was his prayer. Because he did mess up, but the Bible says that David was a man after God's own heart.
Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Man and woman, we fall short anyway because we the only thing that God created that don't listen. We don't listen. Everything else follow his rules.
How you know they follow?
Man's don't.
How you know
The sun gonna shine like God said. It's gonna rain like God said. The tree is gonna grow like God said. Man is the only one that don't listen.
Animals
Minister
don't
Connie?
listen. Animals don't follow.
Mr. Connie, let me say this here. Before I say this, I want to acknowledge Dr. Gillum in the house. Thank God for him. Amen. But I want to say this here. You're saying that men are the only ones that did not follow God's command. Why did he curse that tree?
Because it didn't.
Okay. That was a man-made tree.
That was
That was a man-made tree.
It was low.
So we can't answer for other things that God made. We can't. Okay, go ahead.
Move forward.
It got hot.
Move forward.
Keep on going. Never mind.
Can I say something now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. We talk about the 40. The number 40 is often understood as the number of probation or trial. For example, the Israelite wandered for 40 years, and Deuteronomy 8:2 and 5, Moses was on the mountain.
Where you reading that from, Diane? Minister Diane?
I'm reading on in my text.
On your tablet? You want me to put my slide back up?
Huh?
I had the slide up there. I just said that. I
I
said,
read everything you read.
hold on. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And, also, Moses was on the mountain for 40 days, and, Jonah's, 3 or 4, Jesus was tempted for 40 days, and there was 40 days between Jesus' resurrection and the ascension. And another repeated in the Bible, which the number created north, south, east, west for a season. That's why God put it
Yeah.
for it.
Yep, it means trial, it's a period.
And the words are so small, if I'm not looking up there, it's too small for my eyes. I have a bad eyes.
I am not putting them away. I don't know.
I can't see them.
They won't fit on that screen. I barely can see it either. Alright, but it's a significant period of time or a process of transformation. That's what we want to keep in mind, okay? When we start reading about them in the wilderness and stuff like that, open your mind. Remember that I read about the fire and the water. I'll read about the desert here in a second, okay? There are key words that we want to pay attention to so that God can talk to you. And when we're looking at this, we don't only want to look at this as what they're going through. We want to tie this into where we are. What I have found is that even in Genesis, Exodus, although we call them the New Testament and the Old Testament, that there are life lessons in all of these chapters. Even when you're reading about people. We read about Reuben, who is unstable as water. We don't want to be emotionally unstable. Okay, we don't want to be lazy. We don't want to be a trickster and lose out, or we don't want to be schemers like Jacob was at first. And we definitely don't want to be the ones that created the first massacre, like Simon and Levi. So we did learn lessons already. All right, so all right, let's go. God hears his people's cry. That's going to be 23 through 25. Okay? 23. And it came to pass in the process time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came unto God by reason of their bondage. And God heard the groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So, that's a lot, because they've been there for 350 years. And now this king he's died, and it's 1483, so he reigned from 1483 through 1450 BC. Okay, that was his oppression. So the Egyptians by this time have been in oppression for about 20 years. Okay, 20 to 30 years. Okay, and they're finally crying out to God. Now, did we read that they was crying out to God at first?
No.
What changed? That means we got a whole nother king and a whole nother set of bondage to go. This ain't gonna never end.
Even more oppression.
Yeah. And so it says it came to pass in the process of the king Egypt, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of bondage. Okay. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, it got worse.
Yeah, not only did it get worse, but this is going to be a guy with less sympathy than the last one. Because he was already on them hard.
Yeah, make it drink without straw.
So the next one coming, he's going to be even harder. And they're like, oh God, when is this going to end? We're supposed to be getting out of here. Joseph told us to bury his body. Comes still sitting over there on the side.
They'd have been still content, right?
Who content?
They would have just, again, it's the bondage that been put on them. They would have been content with just staying where they, guess where they at. And, and with the people, but, this is, I guess, the way for them to get up out, meaning
God is
over bring about
forcing them out.
He's making them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable.
For the call out. So,
I have been in situations where I was uncomfortable, and I was fine with uncomfortable as long as uncomfortable didn't move. Okay? And when uncomfortable got more uncomfortable, oh God, help, please, where are you? Because surely I ain't supposed to be. You understand what I mean?
it said he's moving you, though. When you're uncomfortable, he's moving you and taking you.
He's shaping you.
Yeah, so I was told to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what a child does. It's literally grow from
Yeah, and then I put a note here. I just don't see it for some reason. I must have wrote it down somewhere else. I don't know where I wrote it. Anyways, I talked about the fact that Moses is also in an uncomfortable position. Remember, he's a prince of Egypt. He is now transitioning to be the leader of the Hebrews, his people. He's getting to know his people. At the same time, he's becoming their leader. Okay? The Israelites are dealing with something too. We're going to see them when they get ready to leave. Well, this first change is they went from living comfortably to slavery. And when we get ready to go to the wilderness, they're going to go from slavery to a free people that have to think on their own. So it's a lot of transitioning going on. Have you ever been in a transitioning period where you could literally see the transition? Like there was nothing that you could do about it but go through the motions? Yeah?
Also, First Lady,
Uh-huh.
not only were they free people,
They weren't free yet.
well, they were being ready to be free.
They were getting shaped.
In the process of being free, they were also sort of like the rags to riches, because everybody left rich with gold.
Well, they took their stuff, but remember they were riches at first.
Well, of course.
They were riches when they came there. They lived in riches, and then that new Pharaoh came, and then he took everything from them. And remember, he was a bit bitter, and I would be bitter too. Somebody came to my house, took all my stuff, and I lived like a poor person while they lived rich. And then so he took his stuff. You know, they took the stuff back. But when they get ready to go, yes, they're going to take the riches as well. And Joseph's body in the coffin. Okay. Why did you say that? Okay. There is one more thing that I want to point out. It says, and they said, and Egyptians delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. And this was talking about when Moses got to, I went back a little bit, when he went, where he ended up meeting his wife in Midian. Okay, and the water, remember, it represents life and death, all right? So it's basically the transitioning of Moses from a prince to his people, a Hebrew. Okay, all right, I'm trying to pace myself. Okay, and God looked upon his children, and God had respect unto them. And they cried and came up for a reason of bondage. Okay, and God heard their groaning. Now, let me ask you a question. All of a sudden, in the 24th verse, it said, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob, and looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. Does that mean that God was not there the whole time? God was there the whole time. But there was a disconnection. And often people get disconnected from God by this way. They're comfortable. They have everything they need. They don't really need anything from him. Sometimes people don't. Y'all heard that. I'm not the only one. Where people only pray when they need something. So in that 350 years after Joseph died, they were learning, they were mingling. The Egyptians had their stuff going. They were marrying. They were comfortable. But now, all of a sudden, it's like they remembered that they had someone that they could call. And in real life, it is not that God has disconnected from us when we cannot feel his spirit. He's always omnipresent, waiting on you to connect with him. What we will see in Exodus is that God kind of creates, after the Ten Commandments, this new covenant where it's no longer where Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, how it was God telling them what to do, and I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to do this. In Exodus, we're going to see where God, he turns it around and he says, you're going to do this, and I'm going to be this God to you, but you have to do this. Right? He gives us rules. Y'all have kids? If y'all don't give y'all kids rules, y'all house going to be still standing?
No.
House going to be tore up. I know mine do. Let them run for 5 minutes. Don't give them rules. They're going to be swinging on that chandelier. I'm so glad we got rid of the chandelier. All right, they'll tear down the windows. They'll probably eat the broom. They won't clean. if you don't give them rules. And that's how they were. They didn't have those rules. They didn't have any necessity for God. And so what, again, I want to reiterate this. What God does in Exodus is this is a God-centered chapter. This is where everything everything turns back to who God is. God is I am. God is Yahweh. Okay? All right. Anybody else want to say something? Reverend Driver? No? All right, awesome. Oh, thank you so much, sir. All right, going on to Moses 3. Moses 3, chapter 3, Exodus. All right, and it's Moses and the burning bush. It's fire. All right, Exodus chapter 3. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will not now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. So, anybody want to say something? Not yet? Okay. So Moses was simply doing what he did when he met Jethro and his daughters. He went over there, he was watering something, and there's a burning bush. And remember that fire is something, it's not a negative, I don't know if some of y'all were in here. Well, not only that, but this is what fire represents. I want y'all to keep this stuff in mind. Keywords, fire.
I know with Moses, he said the Egyptian god, they low-key. So I know he remembered that.
He remembered that, but when this fire comes, it's this. Used frequently and in very concept, it usually makes a statement about God. So what God did with this bush, right? This bush is on fire, but it is not consumed. Which means the fire is there, but it's not touching that. Who else can do something like that? Nobody but God. So Moses said, I'm going to turn aside and look at this bush to see that it's not consumed, and it's still there. The fire is there. The fire is there. The flame is there, but the bush is not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, that's when he got his attention and called him out, okay? And told him to come in and take his shoes off, all right? But this is the thing that I like. Moses was not scared of the voice that he heard. What make him not scared of the voice that he heard?
Something about that spirit of that bush and just something about his spirit. With that spirit, just something about it that he knew was something more than what he's. I mean, to say that God, it was just God and him and him being who he was. It's just, just wasn't scary to me. In my opinion, yeah.
And then he's also aware of the history now.
Oh, okay.
Remember, he's in the house of Jethro, and they are Hebrews. So he's been with them. So now he's getting a knowledge of the Hebrew religion. He didn't know it at first. He didn't know anything but Egypt. There's several different gods and all of that. But now he's getting to know their God.
Jethro was Hebrew. I thought it was
Midianite?
Yeah, they say it was Hebrew.
I mean, they're cousins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cousins, good enough.
That's still Hebrew. All right. Okay. You threw me off. I do apologize.
We were talking about the Hebrews.
Well,
About the fire with the men. Wait, we said
About the fire didn't consume, and when you be shocked, how would you feel if it was talking to him?
yeah, never mind. It's gone. All right. And when the Lord saw that, he turned around. Okay, so let's go over. Moreover, I am the God. Oh, I know what I was about to say. He said, "Here am I." Okay, and he said, "Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, and for the place that you stand is holy ground. Moreover, I am the God of thy father." And so this is where God introduces himself to Moses. This will be the first time that Moses, out of all of those generations, God has not been introduced like this in many years to the Hebrews. Well, not right here. Right here it would have been like 380, 300.
Yeah, haven't heard before. What, 350?
Yeah.
About they was in that for 350 years.
So it would be like 340 right here. Yeah, I mean, 390, like 85, 90 right there, okay? Because Moses is 40. Remember, he's 40.
Yeah.
Why did Moses hid his face when the God spoke to him?
Because you can't look upon his glory.
Because it was said that he couldn't look, if you looked at God, you would die.
He was afraid.
He was afraid. But remember, do you remember when Jacob wrestled with the angel? When he wrestled with God? And he told him, he said, "I got to go before day breaks."
Until you are blessed.
There's a scripture about
That was
this.
his encounter with God.
Moses said he's the only one that looked at God face to face and didn't die. From what, somewhat to that now saying.
Who was this?
Moses was face to face with God and didn't die.
But he didn't see him, right?
Well, I don't know about seeing, but the glory is so.
Saw his glory.
Yeah, it's upon his faith that the people could not get close to him.
That would change his hair, had him looking glorious.
You'll get some more when we read further. It's most of it coming.
Well, what more stuff is coming? Come on, tell us now. Now, come on, tell us now.
Marshall?
You know what I don't like when we be in Bible study and somebody say something like, "You'll see later." What I'm gonna see? Just tell me.
Yeah, we ready to know now.
Tell me now, and then we'll see it when we get
And
there.
you be like, oh yeah, now I
God's face
remember.
on Moses.
Huh?
You read that later.
What we read?
Countenance of God's spirit on Moses. You see that later.
Talk about it a little bit so they can understand.
Moses appeared different when his wife and his father-in-law and all them saw him.
Yeah, he came back
There you
looking
go.
glorious.
Thank you for going ahead and saying what you were going to say when we read later. All right.
I have
Yes, ma'am.
the scripture about him seeing God face to face and didn't die.
Okay.
I see it says found in Exodus 33 in 1,
Yeah.
in Numbers 12, 6 to 8. Just I guess telling about
Yeah.
what they're saying about the
God
scripture.
said show God back.
I don't know how
God
true it
showed
is.
back to Moses. He didn't show his face to Moses.
Okay. Well, then what scripture will we read that in? Exodus 33? Is that what you said?
33 and 1. Is that 11? 33 and 11. I'm sorry. 33 and 11.
That he was scared of God. Moses scared of God.
Yeah, 33 and 11.
And in Exodus 33:20 it says, "No one can see me and live."
Okay.
Okay, that's God talking. So we'll read about it, but yeah, that's why I read it, implying that the encountering of God's full glory would be fatal. All right. Okay. Reverend Marshall. I come down to deliver them out of the hands of the Egyptians. And it was because of their cry. There's another time that we read already about the cries and God being able to hear the cries of his people. Do y'all remember? We've already read it, like this year. It would have been in Genesis, Sodom and Gomorrah. He heard the cries of the people, remember?
He did well.
And I feel like that's the main reason why it's important to pray.
Didn't he hear Adam and when Cain and Abel? Didn't he hear his blood? Didn't he hear the blood of Abel?
The blood of Abel screaming, yeah, but it wasn't like cries. But yes.
Can I read Exodus 33 and 11?
Yes, ma'am.
And it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses face to face, and the men speaking unto his friend.
Oh, face to face.
And he turned again into the camp. You know, just after what he said, but it's saying that he. And
So he spoke to him face to face. Exodus 33 and 11. Yeah. All right, so for right now, he hiding his face, okay? But later on, his countenance is not changing.
Because when he spoke through that bush, Moses hid his face. He was freaking.
Well, he hid his face when he told him who he was. After he told him to step into that mountain, he said, I'm your God. I'm the...
Yeah, he was
The 6th verse.
I mean, you would be scared if,
No, he turned to see the bush.
yeah, you would be scared if God speak to you. Do everybody know how God speaks? No, you don't. If God speaks to you in a different voice, you never heard that voice before, you want to know where that voice comes from. Yeah, you're going to be afraid of a voice speaking.
But he wasn't afraid of the voice.
He was scared.
He wasn't scared of the voice. I'm gonna show you. And Moses said, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto him. That's the 2nd verse. In a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. 3rd verse. And Moses said, I will not turn aside and see this great sight while the bush is not burnt. 4th verse.
So why he say that?
Because he wanted to see the bush.
That's common sense. If you see something burning, we all gonna look.
He wants to look, yeah. Now, here we go, 4th verse. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see the bush, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And this is what Moses said, here am I. He wasn't afraid at that moment. He said, here I am. He wasn't scared right there. He said, I'm right here. What's up? What's going on?
After he found out that Moses, God had shown him the burning bush was not consumed.
Yeah, but he wasn't scared of that. He wasn't scared of any of that. He said, here I am. And he said, draw not nigh hither. Draw not nigh hither means don't come over here. Don't come to me.
Don't get too close.
Don't get too close to me.
Not like that. Get out of the
Don't roll up on me like that.
Don't, because Moses was not afraid until he wanted to just come close. Get out of them shoes.
But he said, put off your shoes from off your feet. So what I'm saying is he was not scared when he saw the bush. He was fascinated by the bush. He was like, well, what is going on? If I see something on fire and it's not burning, I'll be like, why is it not like that? And I don't care who called me. I still need to see what's going on right here. I just want to see if is it going to burn up. And so then he says, here am I. All right? So then God tells him, this is where he could have got the fear, Minister Diane. He said, draw not nigh hither, which means don't come close. Okay? Don't come close. And then after he says don't come close, he said put your shoes off, but the place where you stand is holy ground. So it wasn't because of the burning bush. He wasn't scared because he saw the burning bush. It was after God said don't come near. This is when he got afraid. He said, moreover, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. He could have. No, we don't know that. We ain't there. But we don't know that. We don't know how he appeared. We don't know what was in there.
We had a minister say she looked direct at the sun.
I did that too. I did do that. That's why I'm wearing glasses. I'm telling you I did it.
Okay.
I was a dumb kid.
But Moses' relationship was not
I saw down there where
Moses' relationship was not the same as normal people. That's why he had to go to the mountain to talk to God, and the people couldn't talk. They couldn't go there. So we don't know what his interaction with God was, but one thing about it, the children of Israel couldn't stand the sight, but Moses could. Yeah. No, not only the voice, the sight of it either. Okay, we're going to stop here. We're going to pick up next week. But before we take up the offering, let me go over this program that I've been working on while we're doing Bible study. Our church anniversary starts this coming Sunday evening at 3 o'clock p.m. The theme for our church anniversary is by God's grace, we have come this far. And it's coming from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9. By God's grace, we have come this far. Wait, MJ, Matt, y'all come back. Y'all come back. Sit down for me. All right. Sunday school and mission department will be in charge this coming Sunday at 3. Our master of ceremony will be Reverend Mark Driver. Opening prayer and reading scripture will be by missionary Melinda Chavez. Praise and worship will be singing. Our welcome will be missionary Linda Petrie. No, I'm not. That's the speakers. What you got there?
All that's gonna be Sunday.
Yes, all this.
Ephesians
Yeah. Roman 5 is in charge.
8, 9.
I said the music, no, not the music department.
Ephesians 2, 8 and 9.
The mission department and the Sunday school will be in charge. Let me go over this again. Our theme is by God's grace, we have come this far. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9. Master ceremony, Reverend Mark Driver. Reading, opening scripture in prayer will be missionary Melinda Chavez. Welcome will be missionary Linda Manley. Now I want y'all to remember, everyone that are doing the welcome, we will not ask anyone to respond. There's no respond to a welcome. You're not going to say, welcome you to church because God, we're asking you to sing, shout, whatever you want to do, sing on or sing. Okay, let's have a response. We don't want no response. We're just welcoming everybody that are here and the ones that are looking at us live stream, okay? All right. A selection from a choir, short talk on our church growth. Minister Mamie Hamilton and Minister Omega Johnson will be doing our short talk. Then our choir will go on for the B selection, the offering. I will introduce our guest speaker, and our guest speaker is Bishop Perry McKenzie, Willing Workers Church of New Hope and Faith. Then we have our altar call, the Marks and Benediction. So we should be getting out real early. On our Tuesday night, the Brotherhood is in charge. The Master of Ceremony is Reverend D. Wooten. Our opening scripture and prayer is Reverend Robert Grimes. Praise and worship. Our welcome will be Reverend Ronnie Penniman. No response to the welcome. Our Brotherhood Male Corps will be singing. Short talk on my growth in this church, Reverend Marsha. And then the second person that will be speaking on my church growth is Minister in Training, Reverend Tony Washington. The selection, choir, offering, introduction of the speaker. And our speaker is Dr. A.D. Berry, Foundation Church International. We have all remarks and benediction. On that Wednesday night, Pastor A in Usher department is in charge. The mysteries of ceremony will be missionary Zeola Jones. Opening prayer and reading will be missionary Armazel Manley. She will be doing our opening prayer. You heard me, Sister Amazel?
Wednesday.
This is Wednesday night. Our welcome is Sister Missionary Savannah Copeland. She will be doing our welcome. No, respond. Our choir will be doing a selection short talk will be Sister Shirley Bell. Sister Shirley, you will be doing a short talk on my church growth. Evangelist Brady, you will be the second person doing a short talk on my church growth here. Make sure when y'all talk about the church growth, we're not talking about Willow Avenue Church, what I went to before, or Sounds of Blackness Church. We're talking about this church, okay? All right. So, pre-selection, choir, offering, introduction of speaker will be, I will introduce the speaker.